Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies. We are not inside Eford Studios. We are at Lenovo Center today, but we're always brought to you by Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management. Something tells me there's a lot of printed plans for what's happening at Lenovo Center here in the offseason. You might hear some construction while we're talking to Rod Brind'Amour. You might hear some construction while we're talking to Eric Tulsky. Just throwing that out there. It's kind of like a lot of moving parts here at Lenovo Center, Joe.
There are.
So today's show is pretty cut and dry. We're at Lenovo Center today where the exit interviews for Rod Brind'Amour, the head coach, and general manager Eric Tulsky. So let's just get right into it. We had a long conversation with Rod that went a lot of different directions. And as always, Rod very candid with us. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group microphone as we're here at Lenovo Center, head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, he is Rod Brind'Amour. We thought we would make this as inviting as possible with all of the workout equipment left over in this room.
Looks good.
We finally found an appropriate seat for you.
You guys probably could use it.
Wow. Okay.
Just saying, just to help you out.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, look, man, this dad body.
It's too late, Rod. It's too late.
No. That's not true.
So Joe and I talked about this even before the season came to an end. When I guess we'll ease you into the conversation by saying straight up, this is probably your best work this year. When you put everything in the context, when you go back to the conversation we had with you this time last summer, it's probably your best work. Do you view it that way already?
I think I just talked about this. You take a step back from, we've been almost a week now, and then you go, okay, how'd this year go? Not necessarily how it ended, but how it went. It might have been our best season in a long time, just based on all the uncertainty coming into it that we talked about in whatever August or whenever it was. So, we're obviously not happy the way it ended, but I think there's a lot to be positive about.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Freddie yesterday. He was at the Butcher's Market, one of our corporate champions. The way that he played and came back from the knee injury, that has to give you more confidence than you probably had at him at any point in his tenure. That's the way I saw it anyway, the way that he was able to perform in the playoffs for you.
The good news is on that is we kind of knew he's done it before. This is like most people take a year off or half a year off. They're not going to look very good. And he's done it before, so I think that helped. And he was solid, and that's what you need in that position, right? Come back, he didn't look out of sorts, and stepped right in and helped us. So, gotta hope that he stays healthy again. I mean, that's the big question with him, because if he does, then I think that position is solid, and that's what we have to have.
Kochetkov was shaky down the stretch, but I thought in the playoffs he responded in a way that should give you also a positive feeling about him heading into next year.
He didn't really play much in the playoffs, right? He had the 1 game and a half.
He had 2, but I mean,
right? Yeah. So, and if you went by numbers, you'd say it wasn't that good, because
Well,
but
that's not watching the game,
right?
though.
Yeah. But that's how a lot of people they'll either, if you like the guy, you'll go, yeah, he was pretty good, but if you don't, you'll say his numbers stink. I think he was good, so I agree with you. And he was good all year. Can he get better? He has to get a little bit better, because we need him to take the next step. And, which means can't have bad goals. I'll just be blunt. Like, you cannot let in goals that you and I could save. You know what I mean? That go in and you're like, come on.
Yeah.
I'm all for the ones that he saves that you shouldn't. Like, there's a ton of those where you're like, oh, my God, that should have went in. But the ones that get you are always those ones that are like, the little wristers that somehow find ways in.
Yeah.
He's got to cut those out. And if he can get those out of his game, he's going to take the next step for us, which that's what we need.
We're talking about game 3, the idea of understanding the assignment. I mean, he understood the assignment of what you brought him in for. Changing the vibe, I think, was the word that you said. I think Stankoven was the other player, I think, in this last series that also kind of was very consistent throughout. And you challenged your guys after that. I think it also became a national thing too. I think Paul Bissonnette on the TNT broadcast was the most vocal about it in terms of standing up for your guys. Where's the physicality, things like that. You're already making a face. For those who are not watching on YouTube, you're already making a face about this. So how do you view kind of like that kind of questioning that happened after Game 3, which you did get the response in Game 4?
Yeah. The whole thing about the incident is really we're talking about one incident.
Yeah.
If you really think about it. Because the rest of the series, who had more hits in that series? Do you know?
It was you guys.
Who had more hits in the Washington series?
You guys.
So the physicality part is a myth. And that's, I don't know where that comes from. The extracurricular stuff, I'm 100% with you. That's not our makeup.
Yeah.
And that's probably my fault because I go into the series, I say, do not take any undisciplined penalties, which is after the whistle. You can't, that's how you lose hockey games.
Yeah.
Now,
Game 1 of the Florida.
you just
Even if it wasn't a penalty.
right, you have to stay away from it. So our guys are trying to stay away from it. The problem is the way they do it, and they're good at it. They drag you in with the 2 or 3 shots that don't get called.
Right.
And now you come in, and now it's even, but it's not even because you just took 3 shots. So that's where, and then that incident that we're talking about, if you look at it,
Aho here.
we're talking about the Aho incident. He gets jumped.
Yep.
And everyone's trying to get in there, but we got 2 little guys that get mauled when they're on their way in, and the refs keep everybody else out.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, okay, what do you do? And they kick the guy out of the game. Now you're going into the next game. What are we going to do? We're not built to go and jump on you and beat you into the ground. That's not after the whistle. That's just not, we don't have those kind of guys. We're built, like you saw in Game 4, that's how we have to respond.
Yeah.
And I thought we did. So the whole thing about that the comments and this and that, but what are you going to do in that moment? There wasn't much anyone could have done.
Well, I think you just kind of referenced it, and that was where I was going to go with this, the curiosity. We've had this conversation a lot about the physicality, and I agree with you. You guys are a physical team, but you also know your limitations. But you just said it. There's how you're wired and how you want the team to be wired. And after a couple cracks at this and you see the other team, for lack of a better term, getting away with those types of things,
Yeah, we have to try to adjust.
How do you adjust to that?
If it's not in you, if that's not your makeup, you're not going to just suddenly be a guy that goes around and cheap shots guys.
Yeah.
That's just, and I'm not going to ask you to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to need to, if we don't address that kind of player, then we're going to have to figure out how to, in that series against that team, figure out how to do it back or avoid it altogether.
Okay.
And that's hard to do the way they do it. So, that might be the adjustment you have to make. I don't know. I mean, we'll see if we get them again and that happens. You watch, it'll be interesting to see how it gets called in this series. Because if you go back 2 years ago, it was the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when it got to the finals, what happened?
Yeah.
They got called on everything. And all that went away. So nobody talks about that. Like, if you call the first one on the first, there's all of a sudden, and if the games are tighter, this stuff wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
It got out of hand because the score got out of hand. That's what that's actually what we should be talking about, not the extracurricular stuff. It's how do we not let the one goal turn into 3 that now leads to everyone freaking out about something. The game was over anyway.
Right.
That's the focus should be on how do we get so we're up by 2 and having to talk about it.
Well, that's where I was going to go. That's where I was going to go next, because in the New Jersey series and the Washington series, what you're laying out played out exactly as it was. You guys played your game. You didn't have to do any of the extracurricular stuff as New Jersey was trying to do it, as Washington was trying to do it.
Because we're ahead.
Because you're ahead.
And they're not going to do it.
Right.
Florida wouldn't have done it either if we were ahead.
So now that you've had time to think about it, what happened in Game 2 and Game 3? I get Game 1, but what happened in Game 2 and Game 3?
Game 1 was not, you got bombed. We didn't get bombed.
Yeah.
We outchanced them.
Right.
It was, if you looked at the grade A's, it was minor, but it was, I think we had 3 more than they did as grade A's. Overall chances were a little more. They just scored on theirs.
Sure.
You can't do anything about that game. That to me is, okay, you turn the page. Game 2 is, they come out again, they get their first 2 in the net, and then it's just kind of, no good. That game is no good. Game 3 is fine. We're going along. We actually got it back on track, and we're 1-1. Should have had a better result, in my opinion, going into the third period. That game shouldn't have been 1-1.
Okay.
We were really good in that game, and then we made a dumb mistake, and
The Taylor Hall pass.
Taylor Hall, and then he walks so early, and there you go. And then all of a sudden, that's my point now. How do we stop it from going from 2-1 to 3-1?
Yeah.
And you can't play Jacob Slavin the whole game. I mean, at the end of the day,
28 minutes in that game?
End of the day, I think the depth got us too.
Yeah.
You can't play 4 rookies in a semifinal and 2 on defense and expect against a team you can get by in a regular season, but you get in the playoffs. Look at New Jersey. That was a good team, but a shell of themselves because they lose 3 players. That's a big deal in 7-game series. You're going to see it. Your little, I don't want to call it weak points, but your lesser is going to get exposed, and that's what happened.
Perfect segue. It's what I was going to ask you about with your defense. I argue for the first 6 years of your tenure, you had the best defense in the NHL. Last year, I feel like you're probably in the top 12, let's say. Okay? If we're being honest here.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't mean Jacob wasn't one of the best. It just means as a group, you took a step back. How would you like to see that unit get back to the top of the NHL?
I 100% agree with you that our strength has always been on defense, and that's obvious with those players that you throw out there. Essentially our 5-6 pair the year before turned into our 3-4 pair.
Yeah.
Like, just think about it. Like, that tells you where we were and where it went to just by pieces and stuff. So you have to build that back somehow. You have to figure out how to make that your strength. Our forward group's pretty solid. I'm pretty happy with how that's all shakes out. Talent's off the charts, really. It's not, we don't have that, Matthews guy. But there's only so realistically, there's 8 or 9 of those guys in the league. We might not have one of those, but we have the best crop, I think, of that next group, and they're all young. And that's, to me, gives you a lot of hope for that. Can we still get better there? Yeah, hopefully we do. We're going to try. But yeah, the D, you have to round that out and figure that out, I think, if we're going to want to compete at the end, to really to scare somebody to go, all right, we can knock you off.
And those were things that you guys understood this past offseason and what you were working with. So I guess we can kind of juxtapose this with the older guy and the younger guy that everybody was obsessed with coming into the fold. We're talking about Nikishin. But let's start with Brent Burns first. When you were talking about when the mistakes are made, everybody wants to jump on, but we're not talking about the good stuff. We felt this on this show. We got this sports phone. People call up without fail. If there was a mistake by Brent Burns, we heard about it. But if Brent Burns actually had plays that were even, I think, in Washington, I think even in the Florida series, there was one where he bailed Slavin out, I think, if I remember correctly. We never heard about that kind of stuff.
No, that's always
the case. So how would you assess Burns with what was asked of him and his age and everything else?
You just said it.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it, we had him playing this year against the top players every night. The year before, that pairing wasn't. It was a different pairing, was getting the tough matchup every night. This year around, he went out there every night, 100%, every shift against the best players all year. And you look at the numbers, pretty good. Now, he's got the best player maybe in the league with him.
Yeah.
But that's still a lot to ask for him, in my opinion. So we're not really setting him up, I think, to have a success.
Yeah.
He needed, if we could get him back playing against the second line guys or even the third line guys, it's a totally different story. So we kind of probably over pushed him a little, in my opinion. Still saying that, we had the best penalty kill in the National Hockey League. He actually, I saw some stat that we had the best numbers penalty kill in the NHL, least amount of goals scored when he was on the ice on a penalty kill in the league. So it's telling you there's a huge value here in this guy, and he's figuring out, in my opinion, how to. He never used to be like that. That wasn't part of his game. 10 years ago, it was I'm going to kill penalties and be elite at it. He's morphing into. He's added something to his game. Maybe the other part is not quite the same, but I think he's still a very, very impressive player. And the whole other stuff. There's a whole nother angle to Brent Burns that in the locker room and how he goes about his business that rubs off.
Yeah.
That to me, I don't know that you can put a number on that, a value, because that's when you talk about young kids coming into the fold and how you watch somebody. That's how they learn how to be a pro, and we got it covered. That's where our organization kills it, because you got a Jordan Stahl. I'll watch him every day. Jarvis has come in and go, oh, I got to do this. That's not an accident that these kids are excelling, and even our young guys now that come in, the Blakes. There's a reason that they take off, and I think, and it's having those guys around.
Yeah, culture is a word that gets overused a lot, but you truly believe in that. I know Corey asked you if you saw a lot of Brent Burns in you, so to speak. But I mean, in terms of career XYZ, but as you're laying it out, the expectations, setting the example, all those kind of stuff, I could see where you see some similarities.
Well, it's so important. That's why, and I don't know that enough people understand that.
Okay. All right, to the young guy, Nikishin. They moved heaven and earth to get him here, but then there's obviously the got to get him on the ice and see if he's ready. So this is where I get into the explain it to the casual hockey guy over here, where Game 5, Washington, you finally break the seal on him. Makes total sense. I thought for his first game ever as an NHL rookie, given the circumstances, he did okay.
Nope.
Right. So that there's that reaction.
If you watch the game and watch every shift, it was train wreck.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is he was deer in the headlights and gave up a goal. We got lucky it was offside.
Yes.
It was every shift pretty much you're going, oh, that's not good. That's not. And that's what was expected. I did not expect anything different. He doesn't understand where he's supposed to go. Yeah. And he did a great job of picking up what we threw at him, but it's still way too much for a guy who you don't know if he knows, because you can't really communicate. Okay. So it was, we threw him in when we had to. Yeah. And in our opinion, it was like, if we have to do this again, it's not going to go well.
Okay, so that's the part that I was curious about, because I knew what your reaction was going to be like. Oh, buddy, let me tell you what we saw. Totally understand that. But it was his first one. Yep. Get it out of the system. So so how do you process? All right, now that it's out of your system, you know what this is about. Yeah. When did? Because that's when the next
comes up. Okay, then we had another injury. Yeah. Well, or not another one. We still had just the one, and so we went with Morrow to play, and he wasn't very good either in the first game he played. So now the question comes: Walker was still in. The question was, which one of these two do you go back to? And so, because Morrow had just played and Nikishin hadn't played in a week in two different environments, Morrow had just played, you're thinking it's probably better to go with the kid that just got his taste, because he's in the same boat. Yeah. Does understand where we're asking him, with the feedback, we on the fly, on the bench. There's a lot of stuff going on. The switches. Okay, you're taking this guy face off. There's a lot of things that just gives you more comfort when a guy who has played all year in the system, even though it was Chicago. So you go back to tomorrow. Okay, that's why. Could have went either way. We were debating it. There you go. So now we don't have a choice, because Walker gets hurt in that game. Right. Now you're throwing them both in the mix. Not a good recipe.
So what do you need to do with him for him to be one of your top 6 defensemen next year?
Nikishin, learn the language.
That's the big thing.
So that,
because did you see enough of him in those other games that it wasn't a train wreck, and you saw those the obvious talent that even we can recognize?
Oh, here comes the fire alarm.
Oh, jeez. What was that?
All personnel, your fire alarm system will be tested. You'll be seeing strobe lights throughout the building. No reason to vacate the building at this time.
This is what they do in practice all the time. One of these days, we're gonna get an actual fire.
We never leave. And here I thought our takes were so hot about the defense that it set off the fire alarm.
We don't even know what we're talking about. Nikishin. The good news about the injuries and now that it's behind us is that we got to see him play a little more, and there's obviously something there. And so now he just has to learn. If he can learn the language, we can have relationship. Can get going better. It's hard to talk to someone that you can't talk to. Yeah. To create the relationship with not only the coaches, with the players. Then I think he's gonna take the next step. Okay. So hopefully this summer all that kind of comes around a little better, and I don't want to say we're penciling him in, but he looks obviously that there's a lot to be excited about.
Let us apologize. We talked to you before.
Oh, jeez.
New Jersey series. I gave you some great line change advice.
Yeah.
You took it. Talked to you, and you won. Talked to you before the Washington series. No one would have ever thought to have Jacob Slavin on the ice with Alex Ovechkin. I know you appreciated that advice. You took it to heart.
We did it.
You won.
Yeah.
We were delinquent in talking to you
Give us the advice
before the Florida series.
I'm sure you talked about it. I mean,
we owe you
after the fact.
Yeah, we owe you.
Yeah.
So we did try something.
Look, there was junior Canes tryouts, man. There was no way I was going to get over that Sunday.
We did try something though with Amico Rantanen jersey to try to do some
I saw
things.
something about that.
You saw the summoning circle?
It worked once.
It
felt like it worked twice.
I thought it worked twice.
Felt like it worked twice.
Yeah, we put candles around the
I saw a
Rantanen
picture of
jersey.
that, yeah.
So we had done a swap with a fan who had purchased that jersey. We gave him a Jarvis instead. Something
good.
a little bit better there.
Let's hit rewind though, because obviously we know you a little bit. You're ultra fucking competitive. You have a conversation with Mikko Rantanen, and he says, "I don't want to be here.
Okay,
You weren't on my list." Okay,
he didn't actually ever say that to me.
Okay.
He was great. By the way,
let's clear
I
the
want
air.
to make sure we air this out, Rob. I had
please.
no problem with this player at all. No problem.
For context here, though, real quick, you had talked to Adam Gold before a game that went viral. About the conversation.
I just
you
knew
had.
what he was thinking. He never actually told me.
He did not verbalize to you.
No, but this goes back to there's a bigger backstory. But the point of the whole thing is, Mikko did us a favor.
Yeah.
He got here. It wasn't that he didn't like us. And he's like, I'm a free agent in a month. I'm not. I have to sign now. We're not. Whoa! I just need time. We can't give you time because if we goes to free agency and we lose you for nothing, that's really not good. Everything just got poured onto him, and he needed to take a break. And I get it. Had he had another year on his deal, and we weren't talking about this, I bet you this would have been a non-factor.
Okay.
But everything got dumped on him, and it is what it is. He made a decision, and he actually helped us by at least saying, I know I want to go there. There's 3 teams I might go to. Try that. Essentially what happened. So now we give management credit. They pivot, and we pull off a deal that at least we get. And we get a player that we kind of knew we thought we might like. Turned out we really like him. So that I think salvaged that whole thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, but I had never had a problem with Mikko and how he handled it, how he came, he worked, he tried. He actually played really well. He had just got no results.
Okay.
If you just look at the actual games, the chances he had, he created, they were all right there. We just didn't score.
Gotcha.
And he didn't score. He hit goalposts. It was crazy to watch how the games went when he was here.
So Sonny's wrapping us up. So I wanted to.
But you did salvage that.
You did salvage it, though.
The stank of it and
that's
getting
why
a player
I
out
think
of it.
They tried. You can debate all you want that. Should he have known? Could he sign? Blah blah blah. I agree with that. That's a.
But we could talk to Eric about that,
right? Because there is some merit to that.
Yeah.
You're going to take a risk. That's a pretty big risk.
Yeah.
Knowing,
especially to pay Jack Drury. I know you hated that.
Yeah, I did.
I know you did.
He's a good player, but I like this. That we're the mentality that there's, like Eric said, there's a good player that can help us. Clearly,
You want to go get him.
we're going to do what we have to do.
Well, let me get one last question in here. You said the smartest thing I've ever heard a coach say at your introductory press conference. You said, "We know how this ends."
Yeah.
We finally got to year 7. This is the first year of negativity towards you.
And it's our best year probably in 20 years.
This is the first year that people are like calling in saying, God, get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
What, how do you what do you think of that or tune that out? Or is it because as a society, we live to build people up to tear them down, right?
It's all par for the course.
Yeah.
Right?
You knew what you're signing up for.
It's sports, first of all. Everybody, and it's the age we live in, which is, let's be critical on everything that we can, because that's what sells. That's what everybody can talk about. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The problem I would have is the narratives of like how it all just flipped all of a sudden now it's bad. Everything that was fine is now not fine. And that's really kind of weird to me. And what's the context? Like we're mad because we lost to Florida, but look what happened.
That's part of that
like,
game too, though, isn't it?
Is what?
Part of that is the way that game 2 went. Game 2 was like an out-of-body experience for you guys.
Yeah, but
in this building.
I think that's a one-off.
Okay.
Like I don't. That's going to happen. And if you just look at it, everything they shot went in the net. Like if we just get a save here or there to start the game, I bet you things are a little different. It's just the way it went. I don't blame the goalie; they were a good shot. Like it's just kind of how those games went. It's not like they had 50 shots on us and we just got swarmed.
I think this ties into the last question I had jotted down because, to your point, it flips. Well, why did it flip? I mean, isn't Florida again? Explain like I'm 5. Isn't Florida basically doing what is dubbed boring for you? But
that's the part that makes no sense.
There's a caliber of player. And maybe the mentality that we talked about earlier. But, I mean, last time I checked, if I understand correctly, Florida's doing what you're doing.
They took our game.
So,
after they beat us in the 2 years ago when the games were tight. And we know everything was right to the wire.
Yes.
Watch how they played after that.
Sure.
The next 2 years.
Yeah.
They changed their game and they went, that's how we got to add to our game. And they've done it better. And 90% of the NHL has gone to this game. Okay. We've been doing it for 7 years. Just watch how 90% of the game, and it's all gone that way. Now, why the boring thing is because someone said, this is what happened. Whoever we're playing gets 18 shots a night, and they're like, this sucks. We don't like playing that team.
Yeah.
But we're not getting 18 shots a night. And if you look at the actual numbers of who creates the most scoring chances in the league every year, we're right up there. So how are we? That's not boring hockey.
I'm going to get you a shot volume shirt.
No, that's just a small part of it.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like that's.
But it's like a dog whistle for you.
What else are you going to do? This is stupidest thing. So actually, in game 2, I wasn't saying shoot the puck.
They were. Yes.
They were. Well, what do you want?
I mean, shoot the puck. I mean, there were.
But you just said that that's not how you should.
Game 2 was an out-of-body experience.
But there were times. I think this was on the power play where you guys were looking for the perfect pass. Right. I think that's where the fans were like, shoot the freaking puck.
I agree. Okay. I'm with you. We got to shoot more.
Rod Brind'Amour, head coach. We appreciate our conversations as always. Thanks again.
All right, guys.
Housekeeping. Before we get into housekeeping, which is brought to you by Enovana, check them out online at enovana.com.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Enovana.
Thoughts? Thoughts on Rod?
Yeah, he was on one there. Very interesting to me. Train wreck is a word. If we were in the socials business of just chopping stuff up and throwing it out there,
don't think I didn't jot that down.
That's
for the socials.
The one that would have popped for most. Burns is my number one takeaway, though. I think we're going to see Brent Burns play for the Carolina Hurricanes next year. I had mentioned this earlier in the week without us talking to them. It just felt like they think they can rework his deal at a more friendly price. And now hearing Rod say it, he believes if Brent Burns is on their third pairing, he's a useful player.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest. You listen to him talk, you watch him talk if you're watching on YouTube. You mentioned this to him in real time. He has a soft spot for Brent Burns.
He does.
He does.
And I understand why. This is anybody who knows anything about Rod Brind'Amour would understand why those two vibe, if you will.
It's a lot of him, but you shouldn't underestimate that culture, that idea of throwing the rope over and pulling guys with you. Mm-hmm. That's how you keep things going. And you can lose a lot of different players, but you have to have certain veterans like that.
Yes.
And I think it's just more than a soft spot. I think he places a premium on that and that work ethic as well. Will Burns be better in smaller doses for them next season? You can already see the wheels spinning that they believe.
Oh, they believe
that's something that will happen.
Yeah, they absolutely believe that.
So I think everyone who calls the sports phone, follows this team,
get ready to learn more Brent Burns, buddy.
I think you need to mentally square that you're probably going to see him.
Yeah.
With this team next season, and if it's in a modified role, I trust Rod and Tulsky that's something they can make work.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. You know what I'm somewhat wistful for? I'm wistful for the After Darks. A little wistful.
Somewhat.
A little bit. I mean, those were good. Those were good. A lot of the feedback.
Did you also catch with Rod? Like, Oh yeah, I think I saw a picture. He likes to play coy sometimes. I
He
kind of
does.
like that.
No, Rod and I have talked about this in passing. He'll occasionally watch. He's
Yeah.
upfront about that.
Yeah.
But to your point, I know you saw the ranting and summoning circle. Don't act like I saw something like that. No,
Somebody might have shown that.
no, you saw it. You probably thought it was funny, but I get why you don't want to get.
Oh yeah, and then of course, geez, Louise Giglio, bury the lead. Let me clear this up. He never said. I was like, well, okay,
just let him run.
let him go.
Let him go. Man.
Let him go.
Let him go.
And he tried the yada yada that part, but
No,
no, I thought it was good. But this is something I said at the time. I said the same thing about Gensel. You're going to see later on this podcast. I say to Eric Tulsky, you were right, Eric. You were right, Giglio. If you keep making these moves in the middle of a season for an unrestricted free agent, and you have an agent who has half of a fucking brain, the agent is going to say to you, you can't give up your freedom this close to your freedom.
yeah,
And I believe in my heart, and I said it for Gensel, I said it for Rantanen, and I was fucking right both fucking times. You just can't be that close to your freedom and convince someone to give something up otherwise. And I think Rod laid it out. It was great to hear it from Rod.
yeah.
It was great to hear it in the way that he said it. Obviously, I was going somewhere else with the question, and he quickly was like, "No, that is not what happened." So you know what?
Talk about
Our work here is done as far as I'm concerned. I even argued with you. We don't even need to do the rest of the fucking show. Just put Rod out today. That's our work at its best.
Well, we still have our corporate champions to discuss.
We do.
Much like our corporate champions at Bloom and Blinds. Before you went on your tangent there, what I was wistful for was those after darks.
Yeah.
Good conversations. Got a lot of great feedback about the after darks. And of course, we could not have done it without our friends at Bloom and Blinds. So they supported us as a corporate champion. You support them. Give them a call at 919-980-9815.
Especially at this time of the year. I know a lot of people are trying to get their house ready to either sell it or they're just moving in. Trust me, I wrestled with 28 windows and blinds in 2005, and I'm still scarred from it.
You know what I'm going to do on my way back to the studio to chop up this podcast and put it out there? Hit Happy Inhale. This is nothing but one big old hockey break.
Let's take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy Inhale.
I'm going to need an Almond Brothers to get by the rest of the day. So download the app, use the promo code OG25 to save 25% off your first order with that promo code, Joe.
You know, the Bueno Bowl, and it comes with those little tortilla chips. Gosh,
Yeah,
I don't know how they do it.
it's good stuff. Life is about balance. We're going to talk about balance with Eric Tulsky here in a second. Like, how do you balance going after top talent versus finding guys who are actual fits as it kind of played out? Well, you balance Happy Inhale, eating healthy, because that means you've opened up the door, your calorie counter for wonderful ice cream flavors at Two Roosters. See where the balance comes in?
And they have their favorites this summer, the Oreo peanut butter and the lemon bar. Man, Jared's a genius.
He's a mad scientist. Him and Tulsky, best at their craft when it comes to getting in the lab and thinking about these things. So go to tworoosters.com. We're going to have our flavor coming out in July. Why don't you make a whole date night out of it? Go to the butcher's market, get a pre-made meal that you can just stick in the oven, make it super easy. You've got the ice cream. That sounds like a great Friday or Saturday night. But let's say you want to get a little bit more involved. You actually want to grill out. You want to do the thing. Go to thebutchersmarkets.com. You can find out everything from like exotic meats that they got in the freezer, something as simple as salmon, which is fantastic, to the pre-marinated things like the signature steak tips, which even the worst cook will not mess up. They're so easy.
So I went yesterday.
Yeah.
As mentioned, I saw Freddie Anderson there. I got my salmon. It's my new staple. However, I got the blue cheese and red wine marinated steak tips.
I've had that. It's very good.
That was my first time. Delicious.
So head on over, thebutchersmarkets.com. And of course, our friends at Keller Williams Commercial. You've just purchased all the oxtail you could ever want.
Whoa.
You just purchased all the ostrich burgers. You got to keep it somewhere, right?
Yes.
Keller Williams can find you a commercial real estate spot, a warehouse space with refrigeration, with freezers that'll keep all that stuff in check. Of course, we're
They
kidding.
could probably get the Canes a better weight room. than
not in the Wolfpack family.
the
room.
opposing team weight room. Jeez.
So, hey, look, you're looking for that CrossFit warehouse space. You're looking at that bike. It says Kaiser on it. The Kaiser Chops.
Kaiser chop.
So you can do all that kind of stuff. Our friends at Keller Williams Commercial can help you out to find that perfect space. 919-616-8681, trianglencommercial.com. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group microphone again in Lenovo Center, it is the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. He is Eric Tulsky. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So let's compare last offseason to this offseason. I feel like the dynamics have changed from taking over when you did and some tough decisions you had to make to what we've talked about a couple of times this season, knowing you got a lot of cap space. So just from taking the job to that particular offseason to this one, what's the biggest difference? But beyond just that salary cap.
Yeah, I mean, the financial flexibility is night and day difference. If we had wanted to bring back last year's team this year, we'd have been $20 million over the cap.
Okay.
And finding a way to get under the cap meant letting a lot of players go who we liked. This year, it's the other way around. We've got more than $20 million extra cap space to figure out where we can add. And so totally different story, different situation. And, it's the team's in a different place, right? We've been through that little retooling. We've swapped some players out. We've gotten younger, and we've positioned ourselves to keep getting forwards. And so now the game isn't how do we keep it together? It's how do we keep taking steps forward?
Mm-hmm. Sebastian Aho was vocal on Friday during his exit interviews, essentially, I guess, challenging the team to meet what we just talked about with Rod Brind'Amour. Florida's playing the game that Rod plays. They're just doing it better. Maybe there's a talent uptick, better guys around that core. How do you view that and what he said?
Yeah, I mean, look, we want to keep getting better every year. And, we know the way we're playing is a winning style. If you start from scratch and say, how do you win in the postseason? You'd talk about wanting to be in on the forecheck, wanting to create turnovers, not relying on rush offense, not relying on power plays when they stop calling penalties. Like the way we play of putting teams under pressure and making it hard for them is a playoff style. We just need to keep upgrading the talent to get to where we get the results we want.
Seems like the biggest challenge for you this offseason is on defense. You obviously have two contracts that from your top six that either need to be re-signed or replaced. How do you kind of look at what you need to do defensively to kind of upgrade what has been a strength for you?
Yeah, it has been a strength, and we have a really strong core. Nikishin, I think, almost certainly will step in and take one of the spots. And then the question is at the other spot, maybe we're bringing somebody back, maybe we're making a trade, maybe we're signing a free agent, maybe we're giving a spot to a prospect. It remains to be seen how we do that, but the goal is to keep getting better. And that is a spot where there is room, there is a roster spot open that we could find a better player, or we could bring back a player we have, or give a spot to a prospect and use the money to upgrade elsewhere. It's a puzzle, and the question is as much as anything about where we can find opportunities elsewhere.
What I'm curious about, and this isn't necessarily to rehash the Mikko Rantanen stuff, and Rod, as he put it, cleared the air with that in our conversation with him. What I'm more curious about from your perspective, there's going out and getting the big shiny object, which would be Mikko Rantanen, and then there's finding guys that fit the room, fit the makeup of the team and things like that. And in a weird sort of way, you ended up getting guys that made a lot more sense and produced for you in the postseason. So now how do you approach this going in the offseason? Just pure talent, the shiny object versus guys that seem like they would fit.
Yeah, I mean, look, we wouldn't have brought him in if we didn't think he fit.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think when he was here, he created a ton of chances for himself and his line mates, and they didn't go in, and it left everyone frustrated. But I think we were 3 shots going in away from feeling like things were going really well. Mm-hmm. The question of whether it felt like home to him is completely separate, and that's not something we could answer until he was here and tried it out.
Yeah.
But the way he played would have made us better if he had wanted to stay.
Mm-hmm.
If you could do it again, would you?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're never going to shy away from taking a shot. So, if I know that he's going to come in and decide this isn't where he wants to be, no, we don't want to bring in players who don't want to be here. But before I know that, like looking back, taking that same chance of bringing him in and giving it a chance to see if he fits, of course, right? The opportunity to acquire high-end talent doesn't come along very often. And if you don't do it unless you're 100% sure it's going to work exactly the way you want it to, you're going to miss opportunities that don't come along very often. And you can't do that, right? You have to take those shots. That's the only way you get there. And so, no, I got no regrets about taking the shot. It stinks that it didn't work out, but whatever. We ended up in a really good place. Honestly, I think we might have ended up better off than where we started, given who we brought in and the way it fits.
And that's what I was trying to get. I mean, if you look at Stankoven's production in the postseason, I know fans were doing this. They were doing the count versus Natchez. They were doing the count versus Ranton. And they're like, well, and that's what fans are going to do. How do you view that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the players who moved on, they're with different teams now. They're doing whatever they're doing. It's who knows what they would have done here. We don't get to play the game twice. So,
right.
All we know is the players we had fit well and did well for us and are going to be a long-term part of our core. And that's all you can ask.
I remember we talked to you after the deal, and people were, it was a big deal, right? My question, though, was about the goaltending, and the big brain on Brad, the Harvard guy, the Cal guy, said, our goaltending is good enough. And I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, I don't agree with you. I do not, straight up, I don't see this one the same way. That was the difference between you and me, though, as has famously been said to me.
We ain't the same.
We ain't the same. So you were right about your goaltending. Now, it had to be gratifying, or maybe even talking about knowing things for 100% certain. Freddie seems like he has solved something with his latest surgery. It does, knock on wood, it does seem like he was a different player when he came back and played at a level that I think even the confidence that you had in him had to have been affirmed that he is good enough for you guys to win the Stanley Cup with him.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's played at a high level his whole career. The last 2 years, last year he missed a lot of the year with a blood clotting issue. That's not some recurring thing. It's it's a one-off thing that wiped out a big chunk of the season, and that stunk for us. But when he came back, he was playing really well. And this year, he needed knee surgery, and that wiped out another big chunk of the season. And the knee had been a recurring thing, but since he came back, it's been solid. And, he was fine. Like, he felt as good as he ever had after he came back. And he played really well for us. And, honestly, I know in the Florida series, we gave up more goals than you want to give up, but I don't think you could look at those and criticize the goaltending at all. It was a credit to Florida, right? They were burying their chances, right? Like they're a place where a shooter can put a puck where you say maybe the goalie should get that one, and they're a place where he can put a puck where it's like hats off to him. He made his shot, and that's what happened, right? It's it's not the goalie's fault if the shooter makes a great shot.
That was a long way of me using my favorite words. You were right, but in this case, it was you were right, Eric. See that smile?
Put it on. Should we put it on a plaque?
We can.
Maybe we should do that.
That was good, man.
Maybe we should do that. Put it on a plaque. All right. So this is a conversation near and dear to my heart. I find it kind of funny growing up in South Florida that all of a sudden that not having state income tax is the great equalizer in the NHL. It's a thing. And again, I grew up in Florida in the 90s. I don't remember the Panthers really. I mean, they had their 1 year of the rat hot season, 95, 96. And I had the stat here recently where they went a good, like almost 15 years with not getting out of the first round of the playoffs. And then now suddenly, because they're making to 3 Stanley Cups in a row, it's because of the state income tax and those kinds of things. Is this something that is media fodder that you kind of chuckle at, or is there an actual factor at play when you're looking at taxes in various states? Yeah,
I mean, for sure it is overstated. Look, everybody anywhere, when they make a decision about a job, they have different factors to weigh. Players will have to consider, do they want nice weather? Do they want to be close to their home? Do they want to play in a place with long tradition and history? Do they want to play in front of one of the biggest fan bases? Do they want a big urban metropolis, or do they want a suburban lifestyle that's a great place to raise a kid? And all those things weigh in, and one of them is what percentage of my check gets taken out for taxes. But it's not like every city's exactly the same except for taxes. And, well, I make 3% more here, so I'm going to go there. that 3% is nothing if it's a city you don't want to live in or a team that's bad, right? So it's like, these are at the margins, right? And you want every edge you can get, and an extra 3% is, it's a nice thing to have in a recruiting pitch, but it's ultimately not just about that 3% tax.
I also wonder, like, how good's your tax guy if this is the kind of thing you're sweating here? Although you now have somebody in the building in Brian Fork who has connections in the NCGA. I don't know if he can lean on.
Hit him up.
Like, hey, so, and Josh Stein, the governor, is a big sports fan. Hey, maybe there's an equalizer here. We can do some tax exemptions for hockey players.
Yeah, our political allies have been really good to us, and we've appreciated them, but I don't know if I'm going to that one on this.
So what is then when you now, 4 weeks away from this really going and you're doing your homework, what is the pitch for the Carolina Hurricanes?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of good teams in the NHL. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many teams have the combination of being as good as we are now and set up to keep getting better and better over the term. And if you're signing a 5-year deal, a 6-year deal, or a 7-year deal, it's not just about how good the team is today. It's about how good they're going to stay and be over that whole term. And there are a lot of people who signed extensions with teams that were really good in 2019, 2020, and are desperate to get out of those places now. Yeah. And so that's part of what I think players need to think about as they're signing. And the same thing with the coach, right? Like, there's a lot of coaches that, are good coaches you'd like to play for. In a league where coaches turn over, in 16 months, it's hard to know that guy is going to be there for 5 or 7 years if you're signing a long-term deal. And here, I think you have that security that Rod's a fixture here, and he's going to be here as long as he wants to. And so finding a place where you can sign that long-term deal and know the team's going to be good the whole time, know you're going to have a coach you like the whole time, know that it's going to be fun to play with, and then you get everything that Raleigh brings in terms of weather, in terms of a place to raise a family, in terms of golf, like whatever else it is you want. Like, it's, there's a lot to offer here.
I'm curious about your process, if you'll indulge me a process question. How does it work? Do you, because you said puzzle. Mm-hmm. I think puzzle is the answer here. And look, knowing how that brain might work. The challenge of the puzzle, because it's problem solving, right?
Yeah. And
I asked you about problem solving last year, and you gave a great answer about odds and how there's not one answer, and that has stuck with me. Mm-hmm. So now I'm curious. You've had a year. I suspect you believe in the 10,000 hour rule, right? So you've had a year to do this as the GM. I'm curious, A, what you've learned in this year that will help you get closer to the problem, solving that problem, and B, how does it work with Tom Dundon, with as Rod likes to call him Business Tom, which is what we're entering, Business Tom phase of the year. Is this Eric goes to the lab and cooks up a puzzle piece, or is it Tom gives Eric an idea and then you try to solve that particular idea?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a game of incomplete information, right? We do not know exactly who's going to be available, exactly what they'll cost, exactly how they'll fit with us, exactly what they're like off the ice. All of these are things that are unknown up front. And we've got a staff that's doing their homework to try and figure these things out, right? We've got scouts who are evaluating how good the player is and how well he'll fit. We've got coaches who are digging in, talking to their friends about what people are like. We're trying to get as much information as we can, but ultimately, it's going to come down to a guess about the best way to build it. And we're just relying on our intuition and the ability of our staff to sort of come together and put ourselves in position to take a stab that we think will help move us forward.
I want to go to Alexander Nikishin before we move on to anything else. I know The Athletic did a huge feature on the process to get him here. You also upped your social media game. You're playing the emoji game. I appreciated that from you. So there's your job. That's getting him here. Once that happened, we know Rod's perspective. What's your perspective on, you got him here, now is it just all right, let's see how the coaching staff wants to integrate him when they want to break the seal on him? How do you process that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the lineup's Rod's decision, and he is working with the player every day. He's talking to the player every day. He sees what the player can do. And it's up to him to figure out when is the right time to get him into the lineup. And, What's hard is in the playoffs, we aren't practicing very much.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of rest time. You can do video sessions every day, but when you have someone who doesn't speak the language very fluently, it's first of all, it's hard to teach. And second of all, it's hard to be sure how much they're understanding. And so without having him on the ice, it was just hard to know exactly where he was. And it was up to Rod to decide when he felt like the player had enough of it down that he was ready to give it a shot. That's a hard thing to do when you don't have practices, you don't have low stakes games you can put him in.
And what are the mechanics on, say, Chicago in that process? Because, I mean, there was still some time left in, you still had some time at the end of the season to potentially get him, or am I misunderstanding the mechanics here?
Yeah, so we tried to get him here in time to get to a game in Chicago, and it just, the timing didn't end up working out for that to happen the way we had wanted it to.
Okay. Now that it's over, though, and you clearly have an idea, Dundon has an idea, even Rod recognizes what his skill set is. That's why you did what you did to try to get him here when you got him here. What is a timetable for a defenseman? This is different than a forward. This is different than goalies and defensemen seem to be the voodoo here. So what is a timetable for someone like Nikishin?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. And, part of what makes it hard is just in general, there's a lot to pick up and they're relying on you and you need to know it all. I think it's especially hard with the way we play, right? We ask defensemen to play very differently from how they've often played before. Just the way we want guys to gap up and close out and shut things down isn't always the way what guys have been doing their whole lives. A lot of time you're asked to sort of sag back and protect the middle and not close out all over the ice, not chase guys to the top of the zone. And so just building that instinct that, you know what you're supposed to do, but do you know it at a reflex level where you're doing it immediately? That takes time, even for veterans, right? Mm-hmm. We pick up a veteran at the trade deadline, and we know it's going to take at least a week or two and maybe a month or two before he really feels like he's clicking. And so, for a rookie, that's especially hard. It does help that the team he played for in Russia does some things similarly to us, but it's not the same. And it's, it takes time to get integrated here. I think, going through training camp and a preseason will be great. I think we'll hit the regular season and hopefully it feels like second nature to him by then, but you never know until he goes through it. He might be a different player in January than he is in October.
No guesses. I don't believe you. I don't believe you, man.
Yeah.
I don't. Because you and Dundon, that's not the way the world works. You guys don't guess. There's no Walter White guessing here. You're the one who knocks. Come on.
It's really hard to know. It's really hard to know.
Right. I mean, there's no mathematical certainty to any of the stuff that you guys do.
Yeah.
You have to. Have you taken a half a step back now that you've had some time to look at like the Roslovich pickup, right? And some of the other moves that you made in the offseason where maybe some people were like, oh, who'd they really get? It did seem like you, Carrier, Robinson, Ghost. I mean, heck, Ghost had some kind of year for you guys. Have you been able to take a half a step back and say, some of these decisions that we made last offseason actually were pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're constantly looking at the decisions we made and thinking about what worked and what didn't, and how we can keep, how we can minimize our misses going forward and keep making sure we take steps in the right direction. And so that's a year-long process of thinking about not just how the player worked out, because some work and some don't, but how we made the decision and what we were looking at and what we were thinking about and what we weren't looking at and weren't thinking, because that's where you can get better. Right? Like, this player worked, like, okay, we already have him. What do you do next? So the question is, why did it work? What were you thinking about? And on the ones that maybe could have been a little better, what did you miss? And how can you pay better attention to that next time? It's the decision-making process that we're evaluating more than the result.
Is that and we can close on this. The only other I'll close the conversation the same way we did with Rod in that, for all the silly discussion about your style and is it boring and blah, 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 you got beat by a team that does what you do. They just did it with a little bit more edge and arguably better players. Is that a frustration point and like, this is our system, how are you doing it better than us? Like, how do you process that, and how do you go into this offseason to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, look, they we believe passionately that this is the right way to play, right? It's our
It has to be because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, well, so it's our core philosophy
Right.
that if you sit back and give people time to make plays in the NHL, they're going to make plays. And the way you win is by getting on them and pressuring and making it hard for them. And yes, sometimes you're going to get beat. Like that's what happens when you pressure. And our goal is to get our talent level to a place where we can have guys under pressure and make it really hard for them to beat it. And we're not quite where we want to be yet, right? And it's, we look at the team that beat us and think they are where we want to be. And, we got to keep taking those steps.
Eric, we appreciate the time as always.
Looking forward to it, man.
Are you just going to take a break here? What, do you get a break?
Not right now, right? We're heading
When do
into-
you take the break?
So if there is one, it'll be a week or two in August. But we've got draft, free agency, like there's development camp. There's a lot coming up in the next few weeks.
It's a lot like being a
puzzle.
It's a lot like being a junior Canes team manager.
Really is,
Never ends, man. Never ends.
It's exactly the same.
Eric, we appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Messing around with the OG Golf Classic. You got the OG Golf Classic row back on right now. That's exclusive.
Hit me up. We have 2 exclusive access items. We're going to have the solid blue polo with the OG flag.
Yeah.
Okay. Hit me up. Giglio.joe@gmail.com. Access. Then that's navy blue. There's a purple stripe that has caught my eye that we're going to put the little drunken owl on.
Okay.
I'm not going to decorate the drunken owl. I'm not going to do anything to the drunken owl other than if you know, you know.
Oh, is that what it is? You don't
It's
want
if you know, you know.
You don't want to put an OG After Dark
Nope.
under the owl, just a drunk owl.
Nope. It's just going to be the owl
All
on
right. I
a
respect
beautiful purple stripe polo.
it. I like that.
Access. It's giglio.joe@gmail.com. Trust me, you're going to love these shirts and you get to rep the OG and you get to help us out a little bit.
So big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer as well. Check them out online at wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer.
In pen now, 7/17, July 17th, it will officially tap the OG Light keg at Shady's. We're going to be out of your comfort zone. We're going to do a 4:00 live show that day.
Okay.
4.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's 4:00 somewhere. That OG will be pouring and flowing at Shady's. That's 7/17. Mark it down.
Jeez. Okay. I'm looking forward to that.
We have a summer of OG Lives to get to, sir. I know you're excited about the summer of the brief history of Triangle Good.
Yes.
But we have a summer of lives, man. We got to take care of our people.
I'm with you on that. I'm looking forward to it. And if there's the beer flowing, I'm all about it as well. Big thanks to our friends at Hometown Realty. MyHTR.com is the website. Buy and sell with confidence. I see a lot about guaranteed offers. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine in terms of some of the frustrations with the market or this and that. And it's like, but you all recognize that if you were to take something like a guaranteed offer, you are leaving money on the table. Like, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, okay, cool. Just so you know. And I hope our listeners understand that too. So if you're looking to sell your house and things might be a little bit on the competitive side, hey, get with My Hometown Realty, myhtr.com. You're going to buy and sell with confidence. A lot of experience in the area, and they're going to make sure you get the maximum value of your home. Let's say you bought a house. You got to finance that thing, right? Interest rates might not be ideal for you right now when you're trying to buy a house, but don't sweat it with Miller Lending. Check them out online, millerlending.com/theog, or call them directly at 919-447-3377. The reason I say that is with Miller Lending, you don't pay closing costs. So you're not going to be playing this math game of buying down closing costs, giving up thousands of dollars just to save maybe $30-$20 in monthly payments. And that's going to take you about 8 years to break even on. That's the average when you pay closing costs. Funny thing is, where the math doesn't math, people will typically refinance in about 4 years. Again, math ain't going to math on that. You could be like Giglio. You could be like me. I'm contemplating this. You could be looking at a lot of credit card debt. You want to consolidate it into a better rate that's a hell of a lot better than the credit card. Well, Miller Lending is going to help you out with that. And as Joe experienced as well, they're not just going to have you refinance into a situation that's not going to be beneficial to you.
A lot of options, and that's what you got to do. You got to explore your options. Austin Herbert, Miller Lending is going to help you with that. 919-447-3377 or millerlending.com/theog.
Big thanks to Matt Davis over at State Farm. We're talking about saving money. He's going to save you money on home and auto. You got the house. Well, where can you save on insurance? You've got cars. You just added a 17-year-old to your insurance. How are you going to save money on that? As best you can, because it's still a 17-year-old. Well, Matt Davis is going to help you out with that. InsureGarner.com.
Welcome to the show, Joe. Welcome to the show.
919-779-8277. My dude needs to pass his driver's license test first, which I guess
give him some time.
Yeah, you might see us out in Hillsborough. You might see us on New Bern Avenue. You might see us out in Greensboro for all I know on Saturday for the Saturday hour. So that kid's getting his dang license this weekend, one way or the other. Hopefully,
hook or by crook.
Hopefully, the Nintendo Switch 2 arrives in time so that when I'm camping out at a DMV, at least I'm playing Mario Kart. So in the meantime, save money on insurance. Go to InsureGarner.com or call 919-779-8277. Matt Davis is going to make sure you are saving that money. Any takeaways from the Tulsky conversation? Other than he clearly has a plan.
He plays it close to the vest.
He does.
It's interesting.
He does.
So we can get some answers out of Rod where you're like, oh, ooh, yeesh.
Not Tulsky. You gotta get
Tulsky.
You gotta. That's why I threw the tax thing at him. It's like throw you off a little bit, you know.
And we got a smile out of him there at the end too. So
that's good.
Listen, I have full faith that their process and their ideas will be explored this offseason. They obviously have a lot more flexibility than they did last year. It was a tight spot last year. And I'm hoping, we've reached out to Tom Dundon. I'm hoping that we can get some time with him because this idea of business Tom, I think he's had to be that way. Now the question is that he doesn't with this extra cap space and this flexibility. How will he handle this offseason? And while there's some room around the edges on their roster, I think now would be the better time to try to make a splash than waiting at midseason like they have the last 2 years. I've understood why they've tried the last 2 years, but I think at some point your mistakes are mistakes if you don't learn from them. If you learn from them, then they're lessons.
I get the sense that they're going to be lessons for Tulsky and Dundon. So it's going to be a really interesting offseason. But offseason protocols have not arrived for college baseball.
No.
Let's go to the OG Sports phone, shall we?
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
Of course, the OG Sports phone is brought to you by Nature's Relief. Check them out online, naturesreliefhempstore.com, RELEAF hempstore.com. They deliver. They'll deliver you the gummies, Joe.
2025 was wild.
What a country. What a country. I will admit, I was so focused on what was going on in the triangle as it relates to baseball. I did not realize that college baseball in and of itself was completely unhinged this past weekend with many examples, including yesterday with Wake Forest, where Wake Forest's head baseball coach probably needs to be a little more mindful of what he's saying when a camera is fixed right on him. I don't think
they put some statements out about that.
Yeah. Happy Pride, I guess. So yeah, man, like that's the sort of situation. I know they put the statements out. It is what it is, but that's really on the lowest of the of all the unhingedness
on a list,
which is saying something. The fact that he got caught on a camera saying things you cannot say in 2025, man. Like, come on, dude. We're a little bit more of an enlightened society these days. Let's cut that shit out. That actually was not the thing.
Maybe
Florida. And all the ridiculousness that happened over an hour delay with ECU?
Not even a delay. They just had changed the time because the game the night before took forever.
Yeah.
And the NCAA was trying to be mindful. Oh yeah, this isn't a professional sport quite yet. We technically have athletes here who, we're going to give them we're just being decent humans. But apparently Florida coach, I think it's O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
I mean,
he lost his mind.
He showed his ass.
1:30 in the fucking morning. You guys getting fucking breakfast. You got it for what? Because they played late? Big fucking deal. 1 hour's gonna make a difference? I'm sorry, Mark. I appreciate you. This is fucking bullshit.
It's all effing bullshit. And apparently, O'Sullivan got into it with some ECU players as well. This is from Pirate Radio out in Greenville. Shout out to clip, Mr. Tweeting Clip, and the crew out there. So what's the context here? One of the guys who was doing the show ends up calling one of the players who had a run-in with O'Sullivan.
Apparently, O'Sullivan wasn't just lighting up the grounds crew, which there's video evidence of, or the site manager, which we now have video evidence of. But apparently, when ECU was warming up, he had his ass was chapped. Like, this guy's got some serious problems in his life that if an hour time change has caused him to act this way. If I was this 2-cent psychiatrist, I'd be like, this guy needs some help.
He needs nature's relief is what he needs. So what? Parker Bird from ECU gets a call from Pirate Radio.
Yes.
In this YouTube clip. So shout out to Pirate Radio for doing all this on the fly.
We're on radio again, so don't say anything dumb.
I got you.
So did Coach O'Sullivan say that to you like straight up to your face, or was it kind of in passing, or what? How did that whole thing go down?
Yeah, so I walked into all right, so we entered on the first base side, but we were in the third base dugout that game, and we were entering, and I was holding the quad board, which obviously you know, but it's the big whiteboard, and I was holding it walking in, and he was already like cussing out some of our guys that had already walked by, and all the coaches had already walked by as well, but he started cussing at like Zayak and Gabe Beschloss, but they didn't really like acknowledge it. Really, they like had headphones on and were kind of just in their zone. And then I walk around the corner, and he's the first person I saw. I was like, "Good morning, Coach. How you doing?"
Just being good guy Parker. Just being good guy Parker.
Yeah, because I mean, I heard about all the stuff that happened, and you know, I was trying not to picture him as a bad dude. I was like, it's a bad situation.
Give him grace.
Maybe not his fault.
Yeah,
literally. And then I turned the corner. I saw him. I said that. He's like, "F you. You can stick that whiteboard up your F and A."
Oh my god.
And I'm like, holy. My reaction was, "Are you serious?"
What in the world, man?
Because the game was pushed back by an hour. Like,
and
you're unhinged.
And this all started with Coastal Carolina's coach, and obviously Coastal Carolina.
No. It ended with Coastal Carolina's coach. So this is the last.
So it ended.
Past press conference of the night.
It's Kevin Schnall.
The Florida coach was asked in the press conference, like, "Hey, what was the problem? And like, did you apologize or whatever?" And he was like, "Oh, I took care of it on the field." Like, he was dismissive and curt. So that obviously had happened before ECU and Coastal played in what turned out to be the championship game.
Yeah.
And now this, I thought, was really classy by the Coastal Carolina coach, sticking up for his people.
I was going to say, this is his spot.
Keep in mind now.
And the NCAA.
Keep in mind now, he's a first-year coach.
Yeah.
The Florida coach has been there forever.
Yeah.
Has a national title, has all this stuff. He's one of the stalwarts of his profession. This is a first-time coach now saying,
one last thing I have is I have to say this, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but you know, I believe in standing up for what's right, and what transpired this morning on our field. Another coach disrespected our associate AD, who works as hard as anybody in our entire program. He disrespected our field crew, who are the salt of the earth. These guys would do anything for our program. It's not okay. And this needs to be brought up. Absolutely disrespectful. As a coach, it's our job to mentor young kids. And the way he treated the 2 site reps, the way he treated our associate AD, the way he treated our field crew is absolutely unacceptable.
So Florida has since released some statements. Scott Strickland has done that. The AD at Florida, and O'Sullivan has released a statement apologizing, and then said, as we get back to the start of the conversation, Wake Forest baseball coach has also released a statement on what had happened with him. So you know what? To go full Shaq meme, I'm sorry, I was unfamiliar with your game, college baseball. I didn't realize you guys could get this unhinged over a weekend. So let's go to the sports phone, shall we? Because we also received some phone calls related to college baseball.
Hey, Joes. So I've definitely caught the NCAA baseball tournament bug for the third year in a row, and it sort of hit me the other day that I'm interacting with the baseball tournament the way most normies interact with the college basketball tournament. And it seems to me also, anyway, that the baseball tournament is growing and getting more popular. So I was wondering, I guess, if you guys could provide some insight on, what the state of the NCAA baseball tournament is, why it's getting so popular, and what do you think this means for the future of NCAA baseball?
What does it mean for the future? More money, more inventory. I think look, success also breeds success. I think when it's all said and done, 5 ACC schools are moving on to the super regionals, as Carolina got the better of Oklahoma last night, and they ran away with that one there at the end. More money, more exposure. Obviously, these television networks need the inventory as well. So, and when you combine that with certain markets, like one of our OG mailbag people had pointed out in relation to the markets that these things happen, baseball is a big deal. So I think all that stuff is tied together.
I think it's a really good spot on the calendar as well.
It is too. Yep.
And for the most part, you're talking about guys who don't end up in the majors.
No.
This is
no.
There's some of that wistful.
They are going pro and something
amateur
other than sports
type deal there.
Yeah.
I also think there's something slightly quaint about it. It's also baseball. We can get romantic about baseball, but this, and I think as I've said, it's so difficult to win. It just doesn't make, like, Vanderbilt coach being unhinged for whatever he was unhinged about. They were the number 1 overall seed.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, they did not even so much as make it to the championship game of their regional.
Well, the good news is Virginia did it once, getting beat the way that they did. So Vanderbilt redemption.
But it's not even that.
No, I know.
The format is slightly confusing. That's part of the romance, if you will. And now you're getting into this best of 3 super regional round, which I think they did a great job of turning it into this. And then Omaha is something that's completely different. And I think that also having its spot on the calendar, that's something that's built up through the years.
Yeah.
And it's become a lore with the players themselves. This isn't a media creation. It's about the players, and it's about their journey. Duke is about to play Murray State.
I know.
At their high school stadium in Durham for the chance to go to the College World Series for the first time since I think it's 61.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a Duke did not care about baseball in the 90s to the point where they didn't even use all of their scholarships.
Yeah, this has been a recent phenomenon in the last 10 to 15 years.
Pollard has done an amazing job with Duke baseball. You think Duke football was a laughing stock? Duke baseball was even lower than Duke football. It's a total joke.
All right, 2A910.
Driving home from the Bosch Monday evening, listening to you guys. Hadn't got to listen to your podcast from earlier today yet. You fucking nailed it, though. We're not interested in the coming up and the folks coming in talking about the baseball, college baseball here. Particularly Joe mentioning which NC State baseball team can he sneak in on the best teams from Triangle Good. You try and sneak that 2013 NC State frauds up in that shit. As a person that was there for all 18 innings in the DBAP, and then I watched Hobbs Johnson throw 8 1/3 innings of nothing but fucking fastballs in Omaha, just shutting them down. Do not bring those frauds into this. As a Yankees fan who likes Carlos Rodon now, yeah, no, you can mention him, but go Hills.
2-8.
Hey, Joe and Joe, calling in after listening to today some of your coverage of the NCAA baseball tournament, and it gave me a question. So I've been listening to y'all for a while now, and I think you have done a very good job, adequately covered the markets, sports markets that are present here in the triangle. You hit it hard on football, basketball and hockey, and then baseball, when today you called it sort of the off-season mode. And I think that's totally fair for the baseball presence that's here. And I think you've done a good job with that. But it did get me thinking, if we find ourselves maybe a few years down the road with an MLB team, which, I don't know if I necessarily think that that's likely at this point, but I do think it's a possibility. I think I think there's a non-zero chance. So let's say it does happen and we've got an MLB team in Raleigh. Are y'all going to start covering the new MLB team to the extent that you covered the Canes? Because, I think, baseball hasn't quite, it's definitely not been one of your main coverages so far. But y'all are kind of the premier Triangle sports podcast. And if we had a second major professional sports franchise, that would leave a pretty big MLB team. Is summer no longer the off season? Is it all of a sudden, Raleigh Capitals time or whatever it may be? But anyway, love what you guys do. And I think your baseball coverage so far has been wonderful. Looking forward to hearing more if that does happen. Thanks.
I tell you what, that sounds like I got another MLB related question that we'll save for the mailbag on Friday. So I think we'll re-rack that one for the mailbag as it relates to Major League Baseball in the Triangle. How does that fit into the calendar and everything else? I certainly think
do you want me to go full Shaq mode
not
right now?
Not now.
Okay.
Save it for the mailbag. All I know is that I'm pretty sure you could probably get more people to a North Carolina Major League Baseball game than the Marlins. Did you see the images?
Baseball is in such
it's
disarray
a
right
weird
now
spot. It's a weird spot
with 3 franchises that clearly need to do better.
Yes. So we'll discuss that a little bit more in depth on the mailbag. I think we got time for one more.
Hello, OG. 9:56 p.m. I just witnessed Murray State holding on and beating Ole Miss and advancing. There was a lot of talk about March Madness and the lack of upsets. Tell you one thing, College Baseball World Series is paying off with upsets. This is good to see, especially involving SEC teams losing. Sadly, Wake Forest got beat by Tennessee. Have a good night now.
Of course, it wasn't lost on me that Wake Forest gave up a crucial homer after my dude was caught on camera. Hey, it'd be like that sometimes. Yeah, but look, how about the SEC? After all that, the SEC. Clearly, Greg Sankey wants automatic qualifiers to the College World Series now, and that's what Sankey's going to argue for next. Like, I'm sorry, the quality of teams. You see all this stuff. We need to have at least 2 automatic qualifiers for the College World Series.
So 3 baseball thoughts. Number 1. The SEC can now only max out with 3 teams in Omaha, which the last, they've gone 4-3, 4-3, 4. Now they'll have 3. So I should have known that pattern at me. Number 2, can you explain? Like, I'm going to try. Here's college baseball. Are you ready? It's college baseball in a 25-second rant. Remember when we were talking about the first game of the ACC tournament in Durham?
Mm-hmm.
It was on a Tuesday at 9:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
The teams that day were Cal, who finished dead fucking last in the ACC. Even Darren Vaught came on the program and said, well, they invited everybody, but only one really has no chance, and that's Cal. Whoops. Cal played at 6:00 local time, their time. They fucking beat Miami. They drubbed Miami. Miami probably didn't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. Fast forward. Look who's in the Super Regional against Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Miami, the same team that got run out of the DMAP.
It's college.
By Cal.
It's college baseball.
Wild. And finally, I'll leave you on this. We are staring dead in the sockets at a Duke Carolina final. Staring.
I don't know how Pollard handles this, but whatever you do not let Coach K anywhere near that final if it happens. Don't bring Jay Williams around going, bullpen? No, you don't want that. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We'll see you all Wednesday.